Hello. This is another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time covering chapter 29.2 from Arc 29, Venom. And hey Vic, as the audience participation reminder, this one is just who's the MVP of this fight. So, yep. Oh, hey Greg. So yeah, I'm sure that different people have different opinions on the MVP. So, as we can see in the art here, it is the King of Cups power, where all sorts of alien limbs start bursting forth from every surface. Although, it's, I like the skeleton-looking hand, even though it's kind of normal in terms of the kinds of hands that you would see on Earth, a skeleton. But, we got some good bugs in there, too. Kind of a Sasquatch hand over on the center right. This is the final version. I really like the coloration of the, orange skies and the, I don't know, the fact that the outline is, an even lighter color than the sky makes the black look like it's maybe, an oil slick black or whatever. Or maybe, it's, Gru's power, where it's, darker than dark. Oh, I didn't notice this before, but there's one that's, such a scraggly stick on the right side that it looks totally foreign, not even insectoid. And then Vic said, yeah, Taylor says the light catches weird on the pitch black. Yeah. That's good. And of course, to your thank yous, thank you for making the art. So, for themes, I had, the first one was scale. There's the chapter opening where Taylor's talking about their insignificance in the grand scheme. And then I even felt like the pencil thin beam, it's just straightforward descriptive, but it's also showing that he's working on this small scale. There's a lot of comparisons of them to bugs, including saying that Scion was tearing the wings off flies, kicking over anthills. There's sort of a scale thing when the humans, not just Taylor, but we see it from Taylor's perspective, realize Scion's true form through the second trigger event. There's the Seamerg tossing capes and being thrown through the crowd. And the destruction wrought from that. And then there's, because the capes are, compared back to bugs again there. And then there's also the sort of scale of Scion, despite being much stronger than an Endbringer. He's one of the only human scale threats that they've fought like this, because he's, fully just a regular human size. And then that in comparison with Lung or the ever expanding dog mass heap later on. So there's a lot to mine with the scale of things. Vic says, yeah, it's weird imagining the fight scenes when he's on the ground. I think he's just so rarely on the ground. Yeah, agreed. And I think part of Vista, like, trying to warp and reshape the battlefield is to make it so that it's, like, more than just a few people can shoot at Scion at the same time. And, of course, all the effects that kind of just pull in other effects and direct them. But yeah, it Taylor talks about it being like difficult to even see him among all the different things several times. Let's see here. I had bullying, everything that Scion does to King of Cups. Seemingly, the second trigger event, Vision, was targeted to have the people, view specific scenes and go through this idea that they can't possibly win. And then the way Scion's healing works. The way it makes it so that it seems as though he's never being injured at all. That is also a way to make them feel as though they're powerless. Doing the thing he's doing where it's like, I shoot at a specific target until someone challenges me, then I kill the person who challenges me and go back to the exact same specific target. Like, that seems like a bullying thing, too. And then, other examples, I'm sure. But I wanted to say also, escalation. Easy one. I think that this is, all told, even with the Endbringers, well, there are, like, specific moments with each Leviathan and Behemoth that can maybe be argued to be up there. But this feels like the craziest battle. Yeah, so it's like Leviathan, Echidna, and Behemoth each have kind of moments where it's to this scale, almost, but I don't know, there's just so many more powers going off, so many things happening all at once. So, this is probably the biggest, craziest fight we've ever seen. Anyway, then there's cooperation, like, constantly, like, more so than in most fights. People are coordinating despite how many people there are, despite language barriers, despite all these things. Like, there's some real continuous power combos going off kind of things. There is still miscommunication, I put that too, because people are speaking to each other in such antiquated languages as French. We don't need to be bringing French into this. But in general, people are kind of on the same page and fighting. So it's kind of impressive, despite the miscommunication from Taylor's perspective. I think overall they're doing fine. And then, despite this being obvious, I put super powered fighting because, like, this is one of the most direct, just powers are firing off, things are going crazy, everything is happening all at once kind of moments. So I think that's obvious on its face. And then utilitarianism versus self-interest. There's a specific whole thing where Taylor is like, I can't believe I'm saving a dog's life instead of a human's life, but also I have to do this to get Rachel to keep working with us. And if Rachel stops working with us, then I might stop working with us. So it's got to be like, I guess you could argue that that's still within utilitarianism. Still, it's more like she's fighting her standard morals to be like, I'm willing to do what I consider to be the wrong thing because it's the only path forward, kind of. Anyway, felt themey to me. Especially because she's going to make more decisions like that onward. So the chapter opens up with, "Oh, how small we were in the grand scheme of it all. Our planet was but a speck in the midst of the Milky Way galaxy, which was a speck in the midst of the known universe. We were fighting to save it, and yet it could disappear without anyone in the nearest solar system even noticing. Small, insignificant, little more than ants before a giant." And this is when Scion does his little beam attack, fires his pencil rocket, and despite a bunch of powers being used to either elevate or get people knocked over, huge portions of their people got slashed by these beams. We got legs missing. We got, probably all sorts of other, like, partial searings, cuts. Some people are probably cut clean in half. Who knows? They don't say that directly, but, we get some known faces, like Harrion saving a whole crowd of people, but they're all jumbled now and out of sorts. Bastard gets his legs cut off, essentially. 3 of 4. You're not going to be walking around with the last one. And he's bleeding out of, like, all of the leg stumps, which is going to become a critical problem for most of the chapter. And then there's, like, people fighting still who were able to, either avoid or whatever and just dodge and keep rolling with things. King of Cups is putting on replacement limbs on, like, anybody who had lost a limb wholesale. Taylor's looking around the crowd and sees, like, Lung has a leg stuck on him. And then she's, like, surprised to see him because despite the battle having only been going on for 1 to 2 minutes, he seems to have been transformed to, like, some huge degree. She thinks 5 or 10 times faster than normal. So we kind of know that he's been saving up one big transformation because it's like if he waits longer between using it, then it goes off faster. Vic says, "Did he let teacher touch him?" Shakes my head. I don't think so. I think that he agreed to work with teacher, but refused his actual power. But he specifically hasn't transformed since the only time he did it in the birdcage 2 years ago. So, he's been saving up. And then she briefly thinks maybe Panacea had changed the power, but we just sort of know from like interlude knowledge and stuff. Anyway, she does think about the thing that Canary had told her about, the fact that he avoided picking fights. She thinks it through and realizes that this might be a one-shot type deal. And then Taylor notices that the King of Cups limbs are actually, like, working for people. They're able to, like, get back in the fight almost immediately. And then there's, like, this cool cape who we never get a name to, but is just kind of like Taylor's like, he's the chess cape. He's like sliding people around the battlefield and like altering stuff. He's doing like really directed like shaker stuff where he's moving people, but he can also move like walls, and he can move obstacles and like drop the walls below the ground and stuff. So he's removing the cover because, as Taylor notes here, cover might help Scion and definitely won't help them. The only thing they could really use for cover is the Seamerg, because anything else Scion will blast through immediately. And then this is where the Seamerg does come in and is she's aiming all the guns, but she's not blasting yet. And Taylor's putting swarm decoys around Scion, and they're dividing further. This sort of thing where she makes duplicates doesn't seem to be working anymore. And then, Scion starts trying to shoot at Glastigüenye. Instead of, like, doing anything or moving, she gets shunted by the chess guy. Taylor takes this moment to mentally quip and think of his name. Bishop? Chessmaster? Curling guy? And that's how we know this story is written by a Canadian. Curling guy. Only you would think of that. And then Glastigüenye isn't attacking yet. She seems to be waiting for her moment. She just sort of like starts hovering, flying high in the sky. I almost did the Pokemon Stadium announcer voice. It flew up high. So yeah, this is when sort of King of Cups has tons of extra limbs, and he is trying to like pull his teammates out of the way, like variously help people, and then is becoming sort of a main character-ish type person. And that's all well and good for him for now. But you know what happens to a main character in a Wildbow story. And then let's see here. Queen of Swords then uses her power to start directing a bunch of lines of light from her sword, and all the like chaos of all the powers that are showing up and being fired at Scion seem to be coming together through this sphere of darkness, it says. And also, at the same time that they're setting up this attack on Scion, then somebody sees what Taylor's doing with her bug copies, and it says, someone was taking my cue, filling the sky with what looked like stone statues of capes, stiff with arms at their sides. The battlefield, the crowd, the sky, it was impossible to keep track of it all. Even if I sacrificed decoys, I still had to think about what was going on. I'd be able to sense that bugs were dying here, that something was moving from one point to the next, but I wouldn't necessarily know who was doing what. What did the ribbons do? What was the Queen of Swords doing with her power? Connecting capes? I like this. It stuck out to me because the stone statues of the capes with stiff arms at their sides made me think of the sort of person standing emoji, which is Vic and I's shorthand for I activate my power. So clearly this cape making the stone statues knew that the most threatening pose a cape can make is arms at sides just standing there. Yeah, fix it. Somehow just standing there. Yeah, exactly. It's the ultimate cape pose. And then spammed in the chat a bunch of the emoji. Yep. That's a whole army of capes facing me down. And Taylor has, of course, been trying to view the battlefield and the battle while sort of hovering up in the air with her bug wings. I didn't mention that, but that's how she dodged, was to just get upways. There was no time to save anybody. They just had to dodge that laser. And then Taylor's like, oh shit, Scion doesn't seem to be hurt at all. He's not even taking us seriously. Yeah. And then so she goes toward Rachel, and then she is both out of line of sight for Scion because of the way the ground works, of course, and then also able to help Rachel, which is sort of the core factor. And then she informs Taylor that even though the core dog body is theoretically safe, he's going to bleed out from losing blood because he shares blood with the large body. And so Taylor sends Rachel on a desperate mission to find that tinker who had the lab rat devices. And she's staying here. This is when she has that moment where she's like, I could have tried to save that cape, but if she was still alive, then King of Cups would have a limb on her, surely. And she just sort of acknowledges that she's making an excuse and that she's just deciding to be the version of herself that's going to save Bastard so that Rachel will stay in the fight, as I said earlier, so that she can stay in the fight. At this point, Lung is hella pissed because he's got a King of Cups leg instead of a normal leg, and his super leg that's transforming is like huge already, and then his other leg is fallen behind by a full foot at this point. And so he can't do his full change. He's getting blocked. Which also means King of Cups might have been a good counter for Lung in a previous combat, because he can just like capstone him in a way where he can't regenerate. You know. But we'll never see that fight. And then they realize at this point, this is when Taylor realizes that chess guy, he only speaks French, and because people are trying to shout to him where to be moved, and then she's like, oh god, we're all disorganized, we're all gonna die. I'm just trying to hold in the blood to one of the 3 legs of a giant mutant dog. What does the world come to? And this is when she thinks about how Scion is regular man height instead of being like Behemoth or Leviathan, where a bunch of people can shoot up at him from a distance. They have no such luck with this one. And Queen of Swords does the damn thing. She fires a blob from her diagram of connecting the capes, and then it sort of gloops over, and then she shoots a gun through it, and at first Taylor's like, the bullet's gonna sling back at her, but it finally makes it through the other side, and it just fires every effect that went into the Queen of Swords like power through. I I could see ribbons, fire, darkness, and innumerable other effects trailing behind as it resumed normal speed. And so it just condensed all of their effects and just kablams him. Um, but Scion was about to start doing another beam attack and just swinging through the other half of the crowd. But when he gets hit by that, he actually, like, whoa, I get shaken up for a second. Um, and then, but that's when, Queen of Cups starts rearranging her attack. And Scion focuses on her. And then, oh yeah, sorry, this is when Vista arrives. So Vista starts, like, affecting the battlefield in various ways, making it, like, not as much of a flat land so that people can get shots off at him and stuff. And, Kid Win is there. Inspiration for all of the Seamerg's weapons. So, I feel like we've got to come up with a name combination where the Seamerg gets a shitty nickname based on Kid Win. I don't have it in my brain yet, so I can't spitball this, but, if you think of one, feel free to tell us. Let's see here. So, yeah, Tattletale's with their group and, directly with Vista and Kid Win. And then she's trying to shout out orders through, like, a cell phone or whatever. And then this is where this character Gavel appears, and he's with this group of reinforcements, and he's got, like, apparently, like, a silly facial hair. Kind of reminds me of the weird way that, like, Armsmaster's facial hair was described at the beginning. Like, not that it's the same, but that both of them are kind of described as being, like, silly, but they can back it up by being, like, really dangerous in real life. And then, so Gavel, he's got a big hammer. He's got a power that makes him mostly invincible. Only so much damage can be dealt to him at the same time. Which for, like, out in the world purposes meant that he could get hit by, like, a whole bunch of machine gun fire, and it would be the same as, like, if one pistol had shot him. And then the maximum damage thing means that only a teeny bit of damage can be done at once. So he can pretty much get over to you. And seemingly he has a lot of options with his power. He uses it in a really straightforward way most of the time, but he could probably just pick up any object, like, infuse it with his power and chuck it at someone trying to use a ranged weapon on him. So he's this beefed out muscle boy, and he tries to one-on-one Scion. Crane the Harmonious shows up with two of her disciples and, like, a noob cape. Takes Taylor a while to realize that the third cape is not one of hers, but he's cringing and cowardly, whereas, like, her actual capes are, like, little warriors ready for battle. And then, so flippin' Scion starts shooting at Tattletale. Gavel blocks the shot, and he kind of, like, starts whacking Scion with his power. It seems pretty good at first, even though Scion's blasting him right in the neck with a beam attack. He's just withstanding the withering beam, and Scion shoots at the Kid Win Tattletale group again, and the Seamerg puts her wings in front of them, specifically blocking Kid Win, but also helping the others. Vic just said, Seamerg protects her TT, heart. While true, I do think it might have been Kid Win specific. She's like, I need those modular designs. Who knows what secret functions my guns might have? Um. But yes. So then, Vic says, imagine thinking Kid Win was impressive. Well, that's how evil the Seamerg is. She thinks Kid Win is the best one. Had you even considered that, Vic? That she's that evil? So yeah, I mean, people are still blasting Scion, but from Taylor's perspective, she's like, the only person who has Gavel's back is the Seamerg. We're screwed. Which I kind of get, because most of them just don't have any durability. Because she's a monster. Yeah. And then, when the beam attack starts, like, cutting away at Gavel, then, Taylor's like, oh, right. Scion's probably the source of all powers, so he knows what's good against what, because he's, like the alien that created all our powers. Fuck. And, this is also where it delves more into why Gavel's not super insta-dead when being shot in the neck by a Scion beam. She thinks about how Gavel's got bad theming. He should use an Excalibur scabbard theme instead, and hashtag I, Taylor, would be much better with this power. What an idiot. I'm the greatest. Me, Taylor. And then Queen of Swords hits Scion with another Ultra Bullet. And then Gavel does this move that seems like he is falling over. And then instead of falling over, he does like a throwing his full weight into a two-handed, like, super hammer swing thing. I'm not even sure the exact form he's using, but it says like an Olympic hammer thrower might swing theirs. But without using a complete rotation, which is the part where I'm like, so he doesn't do the full bit. Anyway, I get it. He does a whole big complicated move, and it looks sick as hell. Even if I can't quite imagine it. And this is when Scion gets launched, like the classic superhero hit where, like, Leviathan hits Alexandria and she just, scrapes along the ground, carving through it, then immediately gets back up and goes back. But I do find this funny that he half floats to his feet and then is immediately hit again. And it says it wasn't hurting him, but it was an inconvenience, because we kind of know from what Tattletale explains slightly later that he maybe is being hurt. Then we can't actually gauge that he's not being hurt, but Taylor doesn't see it. And we get the sense of what Tattletale explains here during Eidolon's interlude, because he was hurting him and Scion healed so quickly that Eidolon thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, that he hurt him. It's a whole thing. Gavel gets a third swing in, and it kind of, his hammer is not able to withstand the, like, power infusions and, like, the, impacts to Scion. It falls apart. Taylor's still dealing with holding in the blood on Bastard, and Rachel's running back. Gavel frickin' kicks Scion. He just gives him an old kick. It doesn't work that well, and the unfortunate thing for Gavel and everyone else here on this battlefield is that Scion grabs him up and starts just infusing him with power and disintegrating him from the inside. And he sort of falls to pieces also, like the hammer. And the starting point is that he jams his hand just the slightest bit into the largest wound he had carved with his beam attack. This is all really like awesome final season of an anime kind of shit, where, like, you know, the craziest thing you imagined with this power system is happening, and also it's got more budget for the animation because they saved the budget during all those scenes where the characters were just talking in a cafe and they had shitty drawings of them. They're like, why can't we have a better drawing of Lung when he's sipping his cappuccino? And the answer is because we needed to save it for this scene. One of Lung's favorite activities is to go to a cafe and have a cappuccino, I think. He's a really chill guy when Taylor's not around. And then Lung is apparently as huge as he was in the fight when he'd been fighting Kaiser right before Taylor defeated him. And then she's thinking about how they need to buy more time. Lung needs to be even crazier sized. And then she thinks about how Gavel had bought them maybe 1 to 2 minutes. It was hard to keep track of time. So at most about 4 minutes have gone by since this battle started, and everything went crazy all at once. And then Scion starts trying to blast Vista, Kidwin, and Tattletale again, just like he was doing before Gavel started annoying him. And then Vista sort of scoops them out of the way, but the hill that she makes is instantly destroyed. The Seamerg keeps protecting them with her wings. Oh man, good thing that Tattletale's there and that the Seamerg's protecting Tattletale. No other reason. And then Taylor's trying to like fly bugs to them for some reason. And she's like just desperately like, oh, get the hell out of there. And then we get more blast from the Queen of Swords. She's just like steadily creating and blasting. And then Vic says probably about Lung, he's just chill like that. And she loves her new best friend Tattletale. Yeah, exactly. And that's all of the Seamerg's motivations, is that she now understands the human emotion of friendship. Vic says she even sang her to sleep earlier. Yeah, exactly. She has learned the meaning of kindness. She has love in her heart, probably for Nick Cage. And she's just on the right path now. The Seamerg is a good guy. And so, yeah, the Scion getting hit by this Queen of Swords over and over again thing makes him now focused on her. What he's doing gets directly described by Taylor as softballing us so hard he was almost taking pity as he like tears through their ranks. Vic says, my little Endbringer, friendship is magic. Yeah, exactly. And And then finally, Rachel returns with the lab rat box. And then they're trying to get it to work. They're trying to like hold it up against the dog. They're kind of having problems lining it up and making it go. The King of Cups is like desperately trying to block shots with arms that are, spawning. And then Scion rolls over to him. And then, like, even though he's got this whole suite of arms on him, he swats away a bunch of his arms, like, completely destroying them. And then he does this thing where he has the King of Cups, and then he's holding him, like, by the head, I think. And then he turns and he points at the crowd and he sweeps his finger until he gets a reaction from the King of Cups. And then with some micro reaction, he grabs the Queen of Swords and then he pins them both to the ground by their head and starts like crunching the Queen of Swords head into the ground, and then like super kills her. And then he just holds the King of Cups there, and he's just like desperately using his power, trying to like get back at Scion or escape or whatever. And then everybody's doing their best to change the landscape or teleport him out of there or like do anything. And then the Seamerg and Kid Win aren't shooting. Glastigüenye's just waiting. Foyle, was knocked away from the battlefield. And then the Queen of Swords, when she's super killed, all of her diagrams are sort of fade, and this is when the King of Cups, he's pulling away with all these limbs, trying to tear at Scion. And then Taylor has her whole pulling wings off flies, kicking over anthills. And then they keep fiddling with the lab rat technology, and then suddenly a trigger event happens. Everything goes like it says, all at once the chaos was replaced by stillness. And what plays through is that they realize the scale of the Scion entity, the big flapping being, as it were, the crystalline entity floating through space, and how like just huge the scale of their battle really is, like even more so than it felt. And then thinks about how, or Scion makes them realize that he kept all the strongest offensive and defensive powers. And then it's sending out all of the shards, a lot of trigger event stuff, the kinds of things we've seen before. It looking for and finding their specific planet, then their specific world on that planet. And then we see the Scion and Eden like together, being the thinker and the or the warrior and the thinker respectively. And all these different scenes, and then see a like Scion surrounded by like a whole ton of capes, like all kinds, covering all the surfaces, and he's just like torn through them with his hands. He's just dripping gore. And then he senses the scene they're in through their passengers or their shards or whatever. So he doesn't just see it from his own perspective, he sees it from the perspective of all the dead capes also, which is, I guess, something that I often forget, that he's also receiving all of that as background data. Because even when we're in his perspective, it doesn't really tell us that. This is one of the only times they kind of talk about that. And then every time they're shown a bunch of scenes where like people fight back or where people don't fight back, and the aliens winning every time. And every time that Taylor wants more information on something, then she loses it. Basically, she's only able to remember the parts that she finds aren't helpful to her, the parts that she doesn't like try to retain. So she's losing any like clever ideas or things that worked in the past, kind of things. Only that they super lose all plot lines, all timelines, all kinds. And then even in the censored visions, she understands the concepts of them, like whoever was fighting back losing. And then how everything is sort of like stacked in his favor, and it's guaranteed for him to win. And then it says, he called on a particular fragment yet to be released in search of a host, and a familiar presence. He could get an understanding of these hosts, filling in the blanks that the future sight in his own mind couldn't. So this is why he sort of needs to be specifically fighting someone sometimes to like tune into what their power is. But in this future, he can see, or in this future sight, he can sort of figure out what kind of things that the humans will try. We keep hearing about this in great detail. It's important stuff, but I am gonna yada yada a little bit of it. Over and over again, Taylor just keeps thinking that like we lose. The way this is described, I really like, because it's like talking about the repetition and stuff. And I could easily imagine someone just writing it out, like all the we loses, and then the like extended like we lose, like all that. But I think that it's well described in a way that is better than if it was just like a crappy, like repeated down for a page kind of thing. The kind of thing I'm thinking of is actually the like I think they do it, I think it's in one of the series of unfortunate events books where it just like repeats the same sentence for the entire rest of a page or something. And like I get that it's for a bit in that, because it's like I was counting on people skipping over this part when they saw the repeating whatever so I could get the secret message to you. But I didn't even think it was worth it for the bit then. Anyway, so seeing visions again, they actually remember this trigger vision because of that third cape that was sent with Crane. When Taylor asks her about it in a minute, apparently it's a thinker that was sent by Teacher. So, dubious. We know that this information is real, but anyone who's receiving it would have to be like, I don't know. If Teacher wanted me to know this, it seems like I almost shouldn't know this. But then it becomes a Yomi game. Maybe he wanted me to disregard this because I got it from him. Who knows? But yeah, Taylor is like, oh no, this is a disaster. Like, after seeing this whole like thing and being convinced we're gonna lose, let me forget, I thought. I don't want to know this. Let me be ignorant. Fight to the end. Um, and then during the trigger vision and them coming back to their senses, Scion isn't actually killing anyone. Um he has just been like waiting still since he killed the Queen of Swords. Um and he, like, the King of Cups flips out, and like this is when it says, a claw emerged from the ground by my neck, every surface in sight marked with the ebon black limbs, faces, and even upper bodies of indistinct life forms, some humanoid, some very not. From horizon to horizon, the landscape turned dark as phantom images peppered it, growing denser with every passing second. With none of the care of the time that he'd taken with the Queen of Swords, Scion crushed King of Cups' skull. The phantom images crumbled into black ash. And then, as Vic points out, single standing person emoji, that's Scion. He's just standing there. The scariest moment of all. And then we realize that Rachel has, in the moments of the vision going off, she has dropped the Tinker device, as she was thrown off by the sort of power backlash that happens whenever anybody gets a vision. And so, in the sort of fight, the Seamerg screams and gets fully into the battle, has drawn Scion's full attention, and she sort of, I have to imagine, with sort of a line in the middle and then sweeping them sort of to both sides, sweeps all the capes out of her line of fire. Apparently, it looks like a ton of them break their limbs and stuff as they get thrown about. And she's probably taking specific people half out of commission because of her own nefarious purposes. But she and Kid Win both fire their guns, shotgun style, blasting everywhere with everything. And Taylor has to turn her head away and cover her arm over her face to not have her eyes blasted out. And she's already worried that she's going to get rumbled to death by all the shaking from the guns. And then when sort of Taylor looks back, Scion has in some way either dodged out of the way or whatever, but he is coming through the portal behind the Seamerg to attack her from behind. And then she gets hit and does the typical like launch at the ground like skidding thing, but then also like super splatter kills some line of capes, probably many of which were ones that she herself threw there. And then a bunch of her guns explode. Seemingly all but one of the guns are destroyed. And then, Taylor starts realizing that Scion's after Tattletale again, and the ground beneath Tattletale's feet had been destroyed, and they were all falling into the ground. And then Rachel sends Taylor, she's like, look, I got this covered with Bastard, you go. And still focusing on Seamerg, the Seamerg begins like doing Taylor's whole decoy thing. And we saw, much earlier in Arc 17, the Seamerg make decoys of herself of snow. And literally fully trick Scion. He like went to go destroy the decoy before he came back. And assumedly he knew which one was the decoy even then. Like it sort of seems like she tricks him, but I think she only tricks him through his extreme dumbness that he's like, better go take care of this ad before I go back and fight the boss. Anyway. So, then, Taylor senses in Rachel's tone that she actually does care about Tattletale. And our hearts swell 3 sizes. Oh, Vic says, that's Scion. And then Taylor flight packs, and she's like, ooh, all this goo and blood in the flight pack probably is going to damage it. And when she is partway away, she senses Rachel's movements through her bugs, and Rachel first shoves a bunch of dirt with the lab rat stuff into Bastard's mouth. Then when that doesn't seem to be working, she starts shoving it into the leg. So that's where we leave that little plot thread. And then Glastic Wenye finally lunges into the fight and begins, she's like, now's the time. And Taylor gets over to her friends, and she's hearing Kid win. He's like, my guns didn't do anything, which, we know is maybe not true. Taylor's asking Tattletale if she's okay. And Crane the Harmonious insists that Tattletale is okay. And then they talk about the vision they all had. Tattletale says anything useful would have been censored. They ask Crane about it and learn that's a teacher guy. And Taylor's emotions start boiling over. So many plays, so many big players. I felt a welling anger, frustration, a note of hopelessness I hadn't felt before. And so Glastic Wenye is doing the damn thing. She had harvested Gavel during the fight. She doesn't need to do anything visually, I don't think, so she had just sort of casually done it. It's not really hurting Scion, but Tattletale explains that that's because he's adapting to passengers' frequencies as he fights them. And then Glastic Wenye, of course, is very variable. She even pulls out Eidolon, the other variable cape. This is when Taylor, says, okay, if he can attune himself, we need to beat him all at once. That's when Tattletale explains that they can't. Taylor says, because we aren't hurting him, and sort of has the devastated, we haven't touched him thought. And then this is when Tattletale explains that Scion is getting hurt, but that he's refilling his injuries and healing himself so quickly that they can't really tell. Which does remind me of how quick Crawler's healing was, where it looked like super speed, kind of the way they described it in those arcs was very good, I think. Anyway, so this is also when the first time they say this bottomless well. A well? And Lung gets into the fight now that King of Cups is not impeding him any longer. and he's had even more time to stack up his power. He's huge. He is directly fighting against Scion with Glastigüenye's various capes supporting, and then it's like she's using Eidolon to both save people and bring herself corpses to keep harvesting more capes mid-fight. And then the other, like, 2 spirits she summoned, which are not described, are just making various attacks on Scion to throw off his rhythm in the fight against Lung. You know, as Tattletale had said, he seems to be adapting as they go. So, like, they have to keep changing up powers. Vic said, Glastigüenye feasting. Yeah. This is, like, one of the best days of her life. She's like, this is so awesome! And then, the morale crushed is said over and over again in this, like, part. 2 paragraphs directly in a row end with morale crushed, and their morale was crushed. And at first I was like, kind of stale wording, but then I was like, no, I think it's intentional. I think he's trying to really drive it home. Because a lot of times stale wording does get picked apart in the comments and then changed up and corrected. So I do think it must have been at least partially on purpose. I also like that Taylor says, the ones who still fought were the monsters, the lunatics. Yeah, I don't know. It's the people fighting. You know, it does remind me of a silly card game anime that I've been watching about the game Carta. How they're like, anyone who's good at Carta is a fucking freak. And they all are. And then Glastigüenye starts using King of Cups' power and Queen of Swords' power at the same time. And I kind of think it's awesome that these 2 capes who were actually there fighting, she's like, yeah, you 2 kind of were the best 2. I'll just use your powers. And the Simurgh emerges with the one remaining gun, a single weapon she'd salvaged and sheltered with her body and wings in the instance before Scion had attacked her. Silver bullet? Tattletale asked. It's an air gun, Kidwin said. Useless. Maybe there's another use for it, Tattletale said. The Simurgh's smart. The Simurgh fired the gun. I think it's so funny. Maybe there's another use for it. The Simurgh's smart. It is true. There is another use for it, but it is not firing a good gun that is going to hurt Scion. Oh, Vic says, I want to see Simurgh use Bonesaw power. Get crazy with it. Because, see, she could use Bonesaw's power in terms of, like, use, but she could do it with telekinesis. So she's not limited by Bonesaw's normal body or having to use spider drones. She can really get crazy with it on the micro telekinetic level. And yeah, so Scion's hair blows around in the wind. It is a hilariously ineffective attack. He blasted the Simurgh, sending her into the bay. Yeah. And then before Scion can even turn around, Lung jumps into him. He's got like a ridiculous amount of physical strength at this point. He's huge like an Endbringer. And then when he turns on his blast, then Taylor seems to think it's beyond flame, beyond plasma. It's like the concept of heat itself. And it's reminds her of Sundancer's power. Scion starts golden beam blasting Lung, but he's just healing so fast that like he is being burned away and splorching out new matter at the same speed. And then as Scion intensifies his attack, Lung, because we know that Lung's power grows with the scale of the fight. Then as his attack intensifies, Lung's Flamios are even crazier than before in some way that I am not sure. I feel certain that if I were there, I'd be like, yeah, it was more than before. But sometimes I'm not sure what that means in terms of, what it would look like. I think that's one of the things that the book does well, though, is like when I'm just reading this and I'm not like slowly analyzing and talking through it, I don't think about the fact that I can't fully visualize it. I'm like, yeah, the flames, but more. I have a visual imagination some of the time, but and I think many people are kind of like this, but like I don't always need to be able to picture the scene. Sometimes like the emotional blob that is a character doing an action, like it's its own kind of imagined space that doesn't need perfect positioning or physicality for me to like enjoy the scene and the story. And sometimes that can get really muddled and bad in books, but I think that this avoids that. Yeah, he's described as the Endbringer-esque Lung. And once Scion is visible, when Lung falls over, then Scion starts getting blasted again. And they're, of course, since Glass-Steagwenier is still giving them the Queen of Cups boon, then they're all still firing it through that boon. And then this is the moment when Crane the Harmonious decides that it's also time for her to do her power. She seems to generate some sort of sphere that you can look through, and it mirrors things upside down. And it sort of blobs its way forward towards Scion. And then once the thing is where it's supposed to be, then all of the powers from all of the people in the area all hit Scion correctly. Everything is perfectly accurate at that point. And, this is happening, and then Scion gets knocked to the ground. Lung is instantly, like, jumping on him. And as ferocious as Lung is, and as quick as he can get over there, Scion just sends him flying. As he moves around, the sort of aim thing keeps moving around, and everything's still hitting him. The Seamerg is, she's not getting up, but she is still telekinetically attacking him. And then Scion does a beam, and he super kills Crane. It shoots through her first, and then it goes right through Kidwin and through the portal, and it destroys something on the far end of the portal. But Kidwin's suit sort of falls over and then explodes. We get Vista rushed to his side, her expression hard, no anguish, no tears. None of the emotion I'd have expected her to show. It was almost scary. And then, at this point, when Taylor's distracted by nearby deaths and lasers going off, then Bastard starts running in. He's getting Lab Rat expanded, and he's just expanding and expanding. Seemingly, the normal Lab Rat thing is to, like, pull mass from your body and use that mass to create another body. But in this case, it is pulling from Rachel's power, and it's just like corking the well of Rachel, like, flowing mass and, like, stuff onto the dog. So he's just expanding and expanding. And then he, like, as Bastard is running over towards Scion, he knocks into Lung, and Lung just throws Bastard at Scion. This is yet again another, like, blooming set of flesh, although not as bound as Lung, because Lung has, like, a bound form that he's regenerating into. This is, like, just more and more flesh blooming out of it, and Scion, he's, like, burning through, and as soon as he finally starts making headway, then he starts getting blasted by the Queen of Swords ability again to knock him asunder. I think one of the most powerful bits about the Queen of Swords power is that probably each time that it's being used, it's being connected to different powers. So he's getting hit with, like, 12 effects that he's not attuned to yet. And so this launches him away from where most of the capes are to a certain degree. And so people start using bigger powers. Apparently Miss Militia is there with a cape who can assist her. She makes a big, it says 10.5-foot long bomb. The Seamerg instantly chucks it at Scion. He tries to sort of scoot, and then she makes it hit him anyway, because it was not just like a lob, it was like a telekinetically controlled flight. And then the person with Miss Militia, who she's paired up with, blocks all the backlash of the bomb and sort of cone redirects it, much in the way that Eidolon had done during the Behemoth fight. And then, so Bastard sort of gets thrown into the bay and is continuing to sort of weirdly expand, and so forth. And Taylor's like, that's fine. It'll probably be fine. The effect would end before it became a problem, I suspected. I think she's right, but it's also funny that she's just like, these things wear off quickly. I'm not going to worry about this. And then at this point it says, yet Scion appeared untouched. He was cleaner, even, scoured of the blood and dirt. Pristine. A bottomless well, I said. Bottomless enough to matter. We take out pounds of flesh, but it's only removing a drop from the bucket at a time. Then the water flows out, high pressure, filling the gaps. And Morale plunges. Psychological, just like the Endbringers. He crafted that body for a reason. I nodded. We understand him more with every passing moment. Doesn't help. Just the opposite, really. I couldn't bring myself to answer. And then, as another set of reinforcements arrive, the second set of cavalry, Chevalier, members of the Protectorate, Leviathan, and at the same moment, Scion was gone. And then Taylor thinks about, like, wow, flight really changes a battlefield. Like, it was a big difference to add capabilities of flight, and even before I could do that, I knew. But Scion, like, flips the board over again by being able to just fourth dimension slip, and just go into a parallel reality. And then Taylor for a moment is like, running? And then Tattletale's like, no, he's just gonna blow up another settlement like this. Taylor says, going to do better next time. You didn't do anything this time, says Tattletale. Aw, Tattletale, that's not fair. She did two things. She inspired the one statue guy to do clones and inspired the Seamerg, so I don't know. The decoys was catching on. And then she also she helped with the bastard trick. So she did two things. Vic said, Brattletail. Why would you say that, TT? Did she do anything this time? I think that she's like, I gleaned new information from this. But, you know, I think that despite gleaning new information, that it wasn't until she spoke to Taylor that they were able to sort of like, because she was just like, well, there can't be anything useful in there because Scion would have censored it. But like, I think if you like really read into the vision, there are things that Taylor pulls out of it for later. So so it's not until Taylor's brain touches the info that it really works. Anyway, it is a total Brattletail move. I can't believe she said that. I know she's under a lot of pressure, but wow, real mean girl move to your main friend and girlfriend. But then Taylor thinks she was right. I was, what, supposed to coordinate powers? Pull something? I've been on my heels the entire time. Not scared. Well, yes, scared. But more in awe. Out of my depth. Remembering the last fight and seeing this fight, knowing how small I was. This wasn't a fight that would be won with some gimmicks. It wasn't a fight that would be won with a lot of gimmicks. I could see it in the trigger event vision I'd glimpsed. In the way things were playing out, the costs, the lack of any concrete gains. I shook my head. I'm not going to be on the battlefield the next time. Dun dun dun! And, you know, of course, there's a possible interpretation of this where someone would be like, you're just going to keep running away? You know, they quote some old anime lines at it. And then she, you know, counters with the same anime. I'm not running. And yeah, she's going to convince other people to fight. She's going to do what she can with people who can't meaningfully affect the battle against Scion, because their powers just don't work like that. And we'll have to wait until next time to see how that plays out. Final chapter thoughts. It's awesome. This one's crazy. It rules. There's like dramatic irony stuff happening because like we know a lot of the stuff about Scion and whatever, but this is the first time it's revealed like in a real way to the characters, even though they theoretically know that Scion is an alien and could be told by Cauldron that another one was defeated or whatever. This is a much more concrete, like straightforward, like way of them learning. Like the powers that we see are like awesome. Like seeing these big heavy hitters come in, like Gavel fighting Glastig-Wenye using like Gavel, Queen of Swords, and King of Cups in the fight is awesome. Her busting out Eidolon. The mid-battle slurps by Glastig-Wenye are great. The Seamerg and her like firing every gun at once and doing an alpha strike, like that's dope. I don't know, it's like a million little things that like all only work because we have our own mental like idea of how strong everything is, so like it actually leaves room to feel impressed and there's like some awe in the moment. It's hard to land that because like you can just tell us that a guy's strong or whatever and that usually won't work. Like you have to build it up more carefully than that. And so this is standing on like the structure that has been built for so long and is relying on us understanding how everything works up to now, I guess. And even then it never gets like too overcomplicated. Like Taylor feels like she can't follow everything, but because she can't follow 100% of everything, then we're not being asked to either. Kind of, we're only seeing the biggest players. I don't know. I just think this chapter is like excellent. It is a non-stop fight. It's a super long chapter, but it never wore on me. I mean, I listened to this chapter like 3 additional times this morning at, like double speed, but still, I wasn't sick of it. I could probably listen to it again after this is done and still be. It's just kind of like sometimes you just want to revel in something. Yeah. And there's so many like little moments and teases for later stuff, like the Seamerg. We know she's got a secret, and we know she's hiding the secret in that weapon, and we've got that classic dramatic irony with Tattletale saying the Seamerg's smart. This is very true, Tattletale. As for arc stuff, I think it is a good continued ramp up after not only the previous chapter, but I feel like continuing up from the previous arc as well, because like obviously there was a drop in tension after Eidolon's death. Basically all of arc 28 is like a build up kind of stuff. The start of the fight last chapter is sort of paying off that build up in a way, and then this is like a climactic battle in many ways. And we get to drop the tension again when he leaves, and we know from what Taylor's saying at the end of it that okay, we're not just gonna fight Scion over and over again this whole arc. It's gonna be like something else. She's gonna go on another mission to try to effectuate change by convincing others to fight or what have you. She really is a coordinator type, so getting someone else in the fight might be her best skill. Anyway, as for characters, we will start with Rachel. She's got kind of her own half of this, and she's, I think, a good one to start on because she gets a lot of stuff. Obviously, Rachel's priorities are going to be different than other people's, but I think we, the audience, are also endeared to the character Bastard, so she is saving the wolf. And Taylor's so aligned with her that she's willing to save the wolf instead of saving a lady, which, take that how you will. I think it's fine. It's like a big message of this book of like, it's all well and good to say that you have the best intentions for the most people until you're actually in a situation and have to make some choice. Like it goes all the way back to Gru talking with her in the really early arcs about how, I think it's in arc 6, about how like in certain situations you just have to prioritize like yourself, and for him Aisha, and then like the next ring out is the Undersiders. Vic says, yeah, Taylor the hypocrite. Yeah, the self-admitted hypocrite. And she's like, I'm just rolling with it. That's what we're doing for now. And we're not sure what the final thing that got the lab rat juice to work was, but Rachel, she did the damn thing. She got Bastard to grow into a big flesh pile. Saving the dog and saving the day, and we kind of keep the Undersiders intact with that, Oh, and Rachel had that moment where she cared about Tattletale. How cute. She's like, go, Taylor. Save Tattletale. Now that the Save Martha moment exists, How could I ever resist? Carrion is still there. She's still fighting. She doesn't get like that much of a mention, but she like right off the bat saves like 20 people or something. So her numbers are, she's doing good, putting points on the board, and she's keeping herself like in the right headspace to fight, even though she flung foil away. So she's a cool champ, one of the capes who is pretty reliable in a fight. Trying to think of the people who sort of get characterization. I'm gonna give Gavel his moment in the sun. He was very ready to just like walk in and solo Scion. Very impressive. Blaise de Guenier. She is like really mysterious at this point. We don't really know why she's acting when she's acting. Sometimes Taylor is still worried, like she's gonna betray us. But you know, she doesn't. She is being casual and silly some of the time, but she starts fighting for real after a certain point. Then we've got like Crane. I think Crane was really fun. You know, another one of these characters we see for like 2 seconds. Crane the Harmonious. She's the only one who doesn't get bowled over by the impact wave from a Scion attack. She just sidesteps. And she very cool under the pressure of fighting, you know, Scion, the Cape God. And she gets like super cut down. It's like they describe her as being like a puppet with her strings cut, and that's too bad because Crane seemed like her power was really good at getting everyone to hit Scion at the same time. But I think I liked Crane because of her like cool under pressure weirdness, walking in like nothing was happening while she's on like the first set of reinforcements, and the way that she like commanded Tattletale to that she's not hurt, basically. All fun stuff. We'll go with Kid Win. Kid Win was like sort of devastated by the idea that his guns didn't do anything to Scion, even though they probably did something. And then we don't get much more from him until he gets lasered. Also, you know what? I've been treating it as like Scion wanted to kill Crane and Kid Win was collateral damage. But it very much could have been Scion wanted to kill Kid Win and Crane was collateral damage, because the whole gun spray from the Seamer, he still might not have liked that. Then we got oh yeah, just minimal characterization. I should mention Chessman. I just think the fact that they throw in more people who can't speak the same language as the English-speaking capes is it's good to represent that there's people all over the world fighting, and despite Taylor feeling like, oh no, miscommunication, we're not coordinated enough, it is also like kind of hopeful that it's like, even though they can't be like spoken to be convinced, they still join the fight. You know, we do our best to feel hopeful at the end of the world. And then I should mention Vista. I really like that moment where she doesn't cry when Kid Win is dead, because she's hard as fuck. And also she's been fatalistic for like minimum 4 years. She's just like, we're all gonna die. Like, literally all of us. It just is what it is. We just keep fighting until we die. Oh no, Vic says, actually, it's because Kidwin sucks. No! Kidwin may not be the coolest guy, but we love him. Except Vic, who hates him. Also, I keep thinking of this stupid joke where I keep thinking Kid Win, but with two N's, and then it's like a child version of the religious leader Kai Wynn from Deep Space Nine, who is one of the primary antagonists. Man, Kid Win, what a great show. She'd be like totally ruining people's day, but in like a middle school setting. Anyway, yeah, Vista's cool and a badass. Who else is here? The Seamerg doesn't count in the characters section because the Seamerg is too pure an expression of powers to be a character. Same with Scion. They have character-like aspects. I mean, if you were to ask me honestly, I would call them characters, but I think it's funnier to pretend like they're not. I guess Tattletale. We'll give the section for King of Cups, Queen of Swords. So these guys are like, they're like longtime heroes or whatever. They seem to be very powerful and like cool under pressure. Like I know that Scion targets them to cause the second trigger event or whatever, but it just seems like under the pressure of a Scion fight, they just keep fighting like nobody's business. And I mean, even when they're dead spirits, they keep getting drawn back into it. They seem like badasses. We don't know much about the suits really in the grand scheme of things, but I want these guys on my team. Yeah, and oh yeah, Lung. We gotta talk about Lung for a moment. Lung really gives it his all. At the end of the Leviathan fight in his own chapter, he had been like, this is a useless fight. We can't beat Leviathan, whatever. But in this, he's like, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. This is the one shot. Do not miss your chance to dragon. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. I think he does pretty good. He becomes powerful enough that he can recover through Scion continuously blasting him. It's very solid. Is anyone else here that I think I should talk about? No. We'll get to Tattletale. Tattletale gets her own spot. And right before Taylor. Tattletale's very pessimistic, and she uses hurtful words on Taylor. But she's keeping it together in a weird manner. Sometimes she gets really out of hand, but I think that her little lash out at Taylor was not that much. It was maybe a hard truth, but come on, Tattletale. Saying that right now, of all times. She's only in the last little bit of the chapter, and like I say, the only thing we really get is like pure pessimism.